I remember buying a computer for like a whole Bitcoin, but like 10 years ago, right? And now it's like, I paid $100,000 for that computer. But what I would say to those people is like, everything is already a Bitcoin opportunity cost, because everything you spend is a Bitcoin opportunity cost. It's something that you could have bought Bitcoin with instead, right?
Welcome to this bonus episode of the Adopting Bitcoin series, with an extended version of the interview that I did with Gustavo Flores. And before the episode, here is a quick shout out to our sponsor, Bare Bitcoin. Unfortunately, they will only work for the Norwegian context, but if you are in Norway, check out their app. It's honestly the best place to buy Bitcoin that I have ever tried. And use the QR on the screen for a special bonus.
Hey.
Hello, Gustavo.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Can you hear me well, by the way, or?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
cool.
would say so. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Because sometimes my phone doesn't work too well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been I've been battling because I don't have because of the power outlets in Europe. They're different than in North
I know.
America, so like I cannot charge my computer, but only my phone.
I know that struggle.
Where are you?
I'm in Norway.
Nice. You have the Oslo conference, right?
The Oslo Freedom Forum. That's a big event for us. I've never been there myself though. It never I live in Bergen. Norway is quite a big country, so
Right.
it's like a 7 hour train ride or 1 hour by plane, and it never works out for me. So that I've never been to the actual conference.
Right. I
Yeah.
understand.
Have you been?
No, I've never been to Norway or
No.
the Oslo conference. I would like to go, but it also is always at the same time that the Vegas conference. Which I was there this year, so
Where are you?
yeah, I was a speaker on a panel.
Ah, where are you? Cool. How did that go?
Went really well. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was on the first day, so there wasn't as many people as I would have liked, but it was still
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Very cool. Should we just start with your journey through the rabbit hole? Like, how did you end up founding sort of a project like Swapido?
Yeah, so I started Swapido about 8 months ago now. It was in October 2024. But I've been like a Bitcoiner since at least I've been buying Bitcoin since at least 2015. So it's been quite a while. I started in Bitcoin when I was just 18, and I had barely any idea of what it was. I just thought it was an easy way to make money online. And I traded all the coins. I made all the mistakes. I've lost money everywhere. But I guess it was really around 2018 that I became a real Bitcoiner, and I went all in. I quit my job, I quit my studies at university, and I went all in. I launched a mining operation in Canada where I grew up. I was born in Peru. I grew up in Montreal, Canada. I spent almost 20 years of my life there, and now I live in Mexico City. So the mining operation didn't work out too well. I guess it was a mix of inexperience in business and also bad reception from like the government authorities, the electricity provider, which is the same thing in Quebec, Canada. And after that, I found another startup called Verify in 2019. That was more successful. We did self custody support, so we help people do set up their self custody setup, their multi sigs, their coin join, their hard wallets. About 6 years ago, and this was even before Unchain or Casa, things like that existed. So yes, not there wasn't much. I would say at that time we were like the first in the world, or at least in Canada, to ever help out people like set up their self custody, right? And we did an exchange after that where you could buy and sell Bitcoin in Canada. That was more successful. Then we transitioned to Bull Bitcoin. They kind of acquired our team. So we all worked there for a while. Then I worked at Wasabi Wallet. I'm a writer at Bitcoin Optic, which is like one of the most important technical newsletter in Bitcoin. And now, well, when I moved to Mexico during COVID, and I realized that it wasn't easy for someone like me who earned in Bitcoin and who spent in Bitcoin to live on Bitcoin in Mexico. So I built Swapido for myself, and my friends that are in a similar situation than me. So we use it every day, right? Like what I like about it is how fast and easy it is. So like I can do my grocery shopping, and I can in the line at the counter I can do like my Swapido transaction to like fund a card to pay at the moment, right? Exactly what I'm consuming. That way, I never hold on to fiat, right? I always either have Bitcoin or I'm paying something right away and gets consumed. So yeah, so that's my story, and that's a little introduction.
Cool. And that sounds like a really good, what can we call it? Like a basis for building something is you're building it out of your own need, right? You're building it for yourself.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but then it turns out that there's not as many people as I would have expected in Mexico that live on the Bitcoin standard, you know.
Ah, yeah.
But I mean, it's okay, right? We build this for the long term. We build this for the few, for the ones that need it. I'm sure with time there will be more people using it.
Mm.
Now we're very focused on adding the function that people can buy Bitcoin in Mexico, because obviously it's not as common to already have Bitcoin as in other countries like Canada, for example. So there's the more people what they need right now is to have good content, good education, and a good platform they can trust to buy Bitcoin, right? Because Mexico so far has been like dominated by crypto, the crypto narrative.
Gotcha.
Bitcoin is for trading, crypto is for trading, right?
Yeah.
Which I couldn't disagree more with.
So I guess it's time to sort of dig into to Swapido a little more here. For someone who doesn't know what it is or what it does at all, how can you sort of like easily explain Swapido?
Yeah, of course. So I guess the best way to say what it is, it's to explain the use cases. So, for example, I earn in Bitcoin. Okay, so my Bitcoin the Bitcoin Optic newsletter, the one that job that I have, I get paid in Bitcoin every month. So I have to spend Bitcoin, right, for my living expenses. So Swapido is the best, or I would say the easiest and fastest way to sell Bitcoin in Mexico. So you can pay yourself in your bank account, or you can pay someone else's bank account. Okay, and um, when you pay someone else's bank account in Mexico, it's instant. And you just put the bank account number or the debit card number, and the money arrives instantly. So with Swapido, basically, you have to enter an amount, enter a bank account destination, click on like create swap, and you'll see a Lightning Network invoice, which is a Bitcoin payments network that does big instant transactions. You pay that invoice from your own wallet. So you switch apps to, let's say, your wallet of Satoshi. You pay it, and it takes about 10 seconds for our Swapido to receive the Bitcoin, confirm to you that we received it, and then make the payout to the bank. So, for example, you can be, I when I pay my rent, I can just go on Swapido, enter the bank account of my landlord, pay her, and she will get the money within seconds. Right? It went from my wallet, converted into fiat, and into her bank account within seconds. So Swapido is very useful for people that live on Bitcoin, that need to regularly sell and convert it to fiat. Right? Because if you're just a Bitcoin investor, you're holding Bitcoin. You don't need necessarily to sell very often, right? Maybe you sell once a year. You don't mind. So it's not a process you do all the time, right? I myself, I use Bitcoin many times a day. Um, so that means that I built this app so that it's as fastest as possible to do this operation, right? And on top of that, we also have people that use this as a remittance platform. So it's easy if you're, for example, in Europe and you want to pay someone in Mexico, either it's a family member or a freelancer you've hired, you know, anybody you want to pay in Mexico, but they don't want to accept Bitcoin, they just want you to pay them in fiat. Well, it's much easier to either you already have Bitcoin or to buy Bitcoin and then to send it to Swapido to sell it for pesos to their bank account. It's much easier to do that than to do a wire transfer, go in person at the bank. wait 3 days for the money to arrive. So yeah, so a lot of people prefer us just as an easy way to pay someone's bank account in Mexico, whether you're in the country or whether you're outside of the country, whether you're Mexican or you're a foreigner living in Mexico, right? So those are the use cases in general. The fastest and easiest way to sell Bitcoin in Mexico, perfect for daily expenses if you live on Bitcoin, you earn on Bitcoin, you spend on Bitcoin, and great for remittances as well.
How does Swapido do that? How does Swapido manage to get money to my bank account?
Yes. So basically, what the steps for this to work, right, are for you to create an account, then to do a like KYC, which we approve with almost instantly, and then once you enter the amount and you enter the bank account destination, we call an API by the Bitcoin company. That's the name of the company we use, which is a Brazilian entity that is licensed to operate as a Bitcoin exchange in Brazil, that has an account with another exchange called Bitso, that is also like a neobank in Mexico, which has access to the fiat system. So we are leveraging the Bitcoin company's API, who their intern are leveraging Bitso's API. So when you pay a Lightning invoice on Swapido, the money goes directly to Bitcoin company, and they use their Bitso account, also called Envio, which is their legal name in Mexico, and they push the money through their NBO account. So when you get the transfer, you'll see sent by the Bitcoin company using the bank NBO. Okay, because it's not us sending it directly, and we do this from a Panama entity that we have. Okay. And then the Bitcoin company gives us a cash back for all the volume we do through their API. This is our setup right now. Then we're moving to set up our own exchange in Mexico. I'm working on getting all the licensing required to operate as an exchange in Mexico. And at that moment, we won't need to use the Bitcoin company's API. We would be running our own Lightning node, receiving the money ourselves, and pushing it out through the NBO bank to our NBO bank account ourselves. So in the next couple of weeks, you will actually see sent by Swapido instead of sent by the Bitcoin company.
Would it be possible to build something like Swapido, like for a US context? I don't know, but using like Venmo or PayPal or something like that. How does it?
Yes, it's possible to use. So you're talking about paying someone out with Cash App or Venmo or with ACH?
What is ACH?
It's like SEPA.
I don't know. I don't know about that, but let's stick to like Venmo or Cash App.
Okay, okay, okay. So basically, just to explain, when I push money out to a bank account, we use the native bank system. Okay, so we're doing like real bank transactions.
Oh.
That's called the space system. It's also called the simplified electronic instant payment system. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so we do a real bank transaction. We don't do like a fintech payment like Venmo
Mm.
or Revolut. You know, we do a real transaction. So to do the same thing in the U.S., you would have to use the banking system in the U.S. called ACH,
Mm.
which is equivalent to SEPA in Europe, which is the instant electronic payment system within the banking system. The problem with that is that ACH in the US is not instant. It takes about 24 hours for the money to arrive.
I see.
So it would be a bit slow, right? Because the money doesn't get there instantly. You could do this with Cash App, but then Cash App has some strict policy on how you can use their platform, you know? So maybe they will just, as a business that provides the service, they will close your account. Probably
Mm.
the same with Venmo, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you could do ACH, but it wouldn't be instant. I think it would still be valuable. The thing is, then you need to get the licenses to operate this, or you need to get a subscription with a provider that offers like a platform as a service, like banking as a service, and that costs in the US. I've looked into it. The minimum it would cost you it's $4,000 a month to get a subscription from a company that offers the banking as a service and the license as a service. So yeah, it's possible, but it's costly and it's not instant. I know they're working on a new protocol called FET now that is already publicly available but not widely supported yet, and that could allow for transactions to be instant. Okay, so it's possible. It's moving better. Maybe we'll do it at some point ourselves. But so far, I guess the end is that it's much easier to do it in Mexico than in the U.S. And the experience provided is much better because it's instant rather than taking 24 hours.
I'm starting to understand that there's something unique about the Mexican context here. And
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
How would that work in Europe? Would it be instant through the SEPA network or?
Yes, exactly. So actually, there's a company that does something similar in Europe. They're
Ah,
called Bringing, uh,
bringing.
Bringing.xyz. And yeah, they do something very similar to Swapido. It's also built so that you can live on the Bitcoin standard in Europe. So yeah, so you do it through SEPA. Basically, on the Bitcoin side, you always need Lightning, and the country side, the banking system, countryside, you need an instant payment system network. So that's Pay in Mexico and SEPA in Europe.
Interesting. So in Mexico, like when I used Swapido, I had to use Transferencia. Is that the name of? What is that name in this context?
Yeah, transferencia just means bank transfer,
Ah, okay, okay.
which is the way they people call the payment method, right? So you, for example, you go to what's different about Mexico is that credit card use is way lower, so you don't just pay with credit card everywhere. You know, there's a lot of places that just take cash, but in between credit card and cash, there's the transferencia or bank transfer option. You know, so you might go to a restaurant and they're like, we accept cash and bank transferencia. So if they accept bank transfer, you can pay with Swapido, right? Because you just pay to their bank account. So that's what transferencia means. It just means bank transfer. And if a place or someone says that they accept that, it just means you can use Swapido. And I mean, it's widely supported. Like even Amazon, you can buy an Amazon product with bank transfer. They accept that because they know not everybody has a credit card.
Right. Let's move over to sort of living on a Bitcoin standard. When did you start living on a Bitcoin standard?
I guess I've ever since I started getting paid in Bitcoin, so that would be around 2022.
Right.
So it's been 3 years that I've been paying getting. I used to get paid in fiat and convert all to Bitcoin either ways, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but that's maybe since like 2021, 1 year before. But really full on Bitcoin, that's 2022. I don't get paid in Bitcoin. At Wasabi, I was paid. Sorry, I only get paid in Bitcoin. At Wasabi, I was only getting paid in Bitcoin. Bitcoin Optech as well, and now at Swapido, we do everything in Bitcoin too. So yeah, I think yeah, that's about the timeline I started.
What is like? I mean, obviously, it's a big advantage getting like living on a Bitcoin standard that the Bitcoin in the long run has gone up around 60% a year, right? But have you experienced the challenges, like if there are dips in the price or?
I mean, there's a lot of challenges, right? So the first challenge is you get a payment. You're waiting for a payment, and the price is at 100K, and it will goes up to 120, and that's when you get the payment. It's like, I would have liked to get it one day before, right? You always want to get paid before it pumps, and you always want to but it goes the other way around too, right? Sometimes I get a payment, I don't even touch that money, and the price goes up 10%. I'm like, I just did like it's like I worked an extra couple days a month, right? It's like I got a couple days for free. So, and I would say it's mostly that than the opposite, right? Because Bitcoin goes up in general more, but also I would say that well, sometimes it's the opposite, right? You get your pay, and then in the morning I wake up and I'm like, I just lost 10%. So that the price volatility, that is a factor, but I guess you just learn to be more cautious with spending, to be more frugal, to think about things more. People will always say like, it's dumb to spend Bitcoin because you should never sell Bitcoin because Bitcoin only goes up. And yeah, like I remember buying a computer for like a whole Bitcoin, but like 10 years ago, right? and now it's like, I paid $100,000 for that computer. It's like, and but I would say, what I would say to those people is like, everything is already a Bitcoin opportunity cost, right? Every time you're spending fiat unnecessarily, you could have just bought Bitcoin with that money, right? So there's no difference if you're spending fiat or Bitcoin, because everything you spend is a Bitcoin opportunity cost. It's something that you could have bought Bitcoin with instead, right? So what I would say is, when I spend Bitcoin, and I spend Bitcoin throughout the years, it's like I've learned more to appreciate the value of my money, and to be more careful with unnecessary spending, right? Because I know that I always convert everything to sats. It's like, if I'm buying this, I could just buy this amount of sats instead, right? So that's always the way you're thinking, right? You don't think in dollars anymore, you're thinking of sats. So yeah, so I would say those are the biggest challenges: the volatility, and like the opportunity cost, like perception. But the second one is just perception, because when you're spending fiat, you're doing the same thing in the end. And the advantage, I would say, is that, well, you start being more frugal and more careful with your spending.
So I mean, Swapido bridges a lot of the gap between Bitcoin and fiat. Are there times where Swapido doesn't manage to bridge the gap for you, or
Right, right. That's a good. Okay, so the challenges on more the practicality of the question. Yeah,
mm,
I mean, before Swapido, I had to use a traditional exchange, which meant delay, right? So like you have to, and also multi-step, like, so you gotta go and deposit Bitcoin, then you gotta wait multiple confirmations, because they used to, no one used to support Lightning, but now they do. I was like, okay, you wait an hour or so, and now you gotta sell it, and then once you sell, you gotta go and withdraw fiat, and then you withdraw, and sometimes you can only withdraw to your bank, not to someone else's. So it was multi-step, and then I had to use a bank account always, all the time. Now with Swapido, I can just pay my rent, my restaurant, everything directly. My electricity. So it does bridge that gap. However, sometimes it's always going to be more practical to use a credit card or a debit card, right? Visa, Mastercard. That's always more practical, and I do have one, because many places still don't accept that. So I just fund it on the spot. I never have any fiat there. I just fund it with Swapido. It takes me for a few seconds, and then I pay with the card. So that's also practical, but I do have to use that. So yeah, I would say that's. But in other countries, when I travel, for example, right now I'm in Europe,
yeah,
and I mean, I use my Mexican card to pay with everything, and I fund my Mexican card with Swapido. But it would be fun to have a platform that allowed me to use, like Swapido, or like a Swapido in Europe that was open to foreigners. So, for example, bringing is only open to Europeans, from what I understand, right?
okay,
So I cannot use it. For example, an experience I really liked is in Costa Rica. You have and you have a platform called Bitcoin Jungle. It's a wallet similar to Blink.
yeah,
So you download the wallet, you fund it with Lightning, and you can pay someone the number with the SIMPE system, very similar to the. It works like the SPAY or the SEPA system, but instead of putting the bank account number, you just put a phone number. So you're like at a taxi, he's like, okay, this is my number, this is the amount, and you use the Bitcoin Jungle wallet to pay him directly,
yeah,
and the KY doesn't even have KYC, under $1,000 a day, right? So it's like very practical. It's open to foreigners. It doesn't even have KYC. So I guess the other friction is the KYC. With Swapido, we still have KYC, and the Mexican government's very strict about it. I
mm,
also, because I grew up in Canada, I go often back to Canada, and in Canada they have good platforms for living on Bitcoin, such as Bitcoin Well and Bull Bitcoin. So you can use those, and they don't even require KYC, under like $1,000 a day too. So you can use that to pay people with e-transfer. That's their method of payment in Canada for bank transfers. So, so yeah, I guess uh, the what Swapido fixes is the convenience and the speed, but what it doesn't fix, and what it fixes also, is that it's available for foreigners and expat and locals. But in other countries, there's platforms that don't accept foreigners, and that's a bummer. And also, what Swapido has, the trade off is the KYC, which in some countries like Costa Rica, Canada, you have platforms that don't have it because legally they're not required under a certain amount, right? So that's the overview of that.
Yeah, it's interesting while you're talking, and like you mentioned all these countries you traveled to and where you've had to figure out how can I live on a Bitcoin standard here. That there's so many like I guess it highlights one of the utilities with Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is the same all over the world, and then but then on this fiat standard that we're forced to live on, we constantly have to bridge the gap between Bitcoin and whatever system we find ourselves in. It's
Right, and I mean, there's merchants that accept Bitcoin directly in El Salvador and Costa Rica, in
mm,
other countries too, right? But it's very uncommon, right, at this
yeah,
point, because the reality is that most people don't get paid in Bitcoin, so they don't want to spend their Bitcoin, right? They just invest in Bitcoin. So even a merchant that accepts Bitcoin will often not get a lot of people that pay with Bitcoin. For example, I've been to places in New York, Montreal, where they're like, I saw online that you accept Bitcoin. And they're like, yeah, we did that in 2015, but now
yeah.
nobody pays ever. So we forgot how to do it. The owner knows, but he's not here. I'm just an employee.
In El Salvador, I learned a new word, the Bitcoin dance. I don't know if you heard about that, but
No, I don't have it.
that's when you go into a shop that is maybe on BTC map, and then you ask, "Can I pay with Bitcoin?" And then they start get all nervous, the people behind the counter, because yeah, they're supposed to accept Bitcoin, like they enlisted on BTC map and all, but then it was so long ago, and no one has really come in and paid with Bitcoin, so they've I don't know, they've forgotten the code
Right.
Bitcoin phone, and then it turns into this dance where they like, oh, get nervous, go and get the manager in the back. You have to like, yeah. So
Right. I see what you're saying.
it's like Bitcoin is it's like a skill in itself, isn't it?
Of course. I mean, it's getting easier and easier. When I started 10 years ago in this space, there was really, it was, there was no content out there. Like, there was really hard for me to understand these things. Nowadays, it's very easy. It's thousand times, it's way easier, right? Platforms are way easier. It was also like, for example, just an example, like if I wanted to figure out how to set up like a node or a hardware wallet, just or even to set up a like CoinJoin or something like that, or even to sign up to a platform. Like it wasn't clear which platform, how to do it, how to set up my wallet. There was no content out there. There was no communities like today, like very small, maybe Bitcoin Talk and a beginning of Bitcoin Twitter. But it was very, very small. So on the content side, there's a lot now. And on like another example is when I started you would buy Bitcoin. There was no way to buy it with bank transfer in Canada. You had to go through like a money mart. These places where you can like remit Western Union or something like that. You had to go a place like that and then like do a remittance to a bank in Japan or something like that. So it's like very, very impractical. But yeah, it's a skill in itself. It's becoming easier. It has many levels to it. I'm still like I've been on this for so long, but I'm still learning every day new stuff. So it's a never ending rabbit hole, but it's getting easier.
So maybe you can help me understand the Bitcoin adoption or Bitcoin penetration in Mexico. You said that the whole crypto narrative is maybe still quite strong there, but is the Bitcoin as a medium of exchange like catching on, or what's going on there?
Bitcoin's minimum exchange is definitely not catching on. It's like there's efforts to make it happen in like the southern parts of Mexico, which are like the beach destinations, which have a more tropical climate. A similar type of like environment than in El Salvador, Costa Rica, but they're just very early projects working on education, working on adoption. It's nowhere near a reality yet, but it's I mean it's slowly building up. What's interesting in Mexico are the new communities that have opened over the last couple of year or two. We have one in Mexico City called La Casa de Satoshi, which I think is the biggest community in Mexico already. We opened it about the same time we launched Swapido. Us and other friends at another company, we launched. They launched and then we joined La Casa de Satoshi, which is a physical Bitcoin space in Mexico City.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
when I'm there, I work there. So yeah, so that and we do events there like twice a month. So that, but in Guadalajara, there's a developer community, developer focused community that opened like 2 years ago, and that's also new. In Merida, which is another big city, they also have a new Bitcoin community. So what I would tell you is the first exchange arrived like 10 12 years ago. It was for like a long time, it was that exchange and maybe two exchanges only, Bitso and Bolavit, and they were all about like trading crypto, day trading and things like that. And then there was like the crypto industry, like for example, you go to a crypto event, it's going to be full of people looking for a job in crypto or that work for like big crypto companies internationally to represent in Mexico. Okay, when you go to a meetup in Canada, it's mostly older guys that want to invest their money that they earned through the past 30 years, right? So it's a different crowd, younger crowd in Mexico, more worker like professional instead of investor class. Um, but what I would tell you is over the past 2 years, I've seen a shift ever since I started getting here. I've seen a shift to like a Bitcoin only narrative, a Bitcoin only communities, Bitcoin only platforms. And that's like slowly making its way into the country, right? So I would tell you it's about 3 to 4 years behind the US, where like right now in the US, you know, the president is on it, people in the government, people in the at the banking system, the big banks, the retirement funds, the regulators, everybody wants into Bitcoin. It's no longer this niche young people trader degen thing. It's
Right.
now becoming a serious investment. And Mexico still hasn't done that transition yet. It's still as something that if you talk to the average wealthy guy, he's like, no, Bitcoin's a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme. You cannot trust it. You know, but we think that transition is going to happen soon, and we're going to see more and more uh, sophisticated investors and just regular people getting to Bitcoin for the right reasons instead of the wrong reasons.
So when we visited Mexico on BTC Map, there was this. I guess it was like an electronic store, Electra, who kept popping up on BTC Map, and then from what I understood, that has to do with like a very rich guy in Mexico owning that chain, and he's been sort of like orange pilled. Can you take me through that part of?
Yeah, so the name of the guy is Ricardo Salinas.
Uh huh.
He was the second wealthiest big guy in Mexico. Now he's fifth, I think,
Oh yeah.
because his stock has crashed a bit. He owns like he employs about 150,000 people in Mexico. He owns one of the biggest TV channels, one of the biggest banks, and one of the biggest, if not the biggest, retail electronics and an appliance store called Electra. And so he's gotten very. I mean, he was always very libertarian oriented, so Bitcoin resonated with him, and he's been talking about Bitcoin a lot over the past couple of years. He's invested a lot of his own money in Bitcoin. He's pushed his companies to accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. For example, Electra accepts Bitcoin as a form of payment. His internet company, Total Play, accepts Bitcoin as a form of payment. And now, even through his bank app, you can like buy Bitcoin, Banco Azteca. It's not like full marketed, and it's like it doesn't work that well, but there's beginning of something there. So yeah, so he's been pushing a lot on that. He's one of the biggest voices in Mexico for Bitcoin. But he's always considered like the most people will consider him like a niche guy. He's like he's just a libertarian. He's
Yeah.
not
Okay.
he's not in the like he's what his business is not on the mainstream, but himself as a sophisticated investor voice, he's a bit on the right wing libertarian end, not on the center end that most people will listen to, right? So, but it's a good effort, and he's making a lot of noise about that. So we support it, of course, right? Um, he's, I would say, the biggest voice in Bitcoin in Mexico.
Just a funny observation. So you said that he went from being the second richest guy in Mexico when he sort of got orange pilled to the fifth richest guy. He must be one of the only people who became poor after being orange pilled, right? Most
Yeah,
people
but I mean, it's
see
because
their wealth
his
increase.
stock, like, I mean, his companies are worth 10, $20 billion, right? So it's because he gets in trouble with the government a lot, okay?
Oh yeah,
For talking out loud about his opposition to the left wing government, and so then and he's always on the news with a new scandal about not paying the government, claiming he doesn't pay his taxes. The government claims he owes them like $1 billion in taxes. He says it's not true, and they're trying to scam him. And so yeah, so a lot of drama with the government makes has hurt his stock value. I think his stock. I would buy his stock. You know, if I wasn't all invested on Bitcoin, I would buy his stock. I think it's undervalued.
yeah.
I think he will catch up there, but you know, like yeah, between billionaires, they like sometimes go up and down. You know,
It's a different ball game. Yeah,
he's still an extremely wealthy guy that has about $10 billion and owns a lot of properties and everything. You know, he's well off. He's not worried.
I did experience a lot of I think I went into two Electras and I experienced the unsuccessful Bitcoin dance both times. I wasn't able to actually pay with Bitcoin in the Electra stores.
My friend Maciek, he succeeded.
Oh yeah, did
He
he?
bought a fridge. He paid it,
Uh-huh.
but it was like 3 years ago. So maybe
Yeah, yeah,
they had just announced it, so like it was fresh then. Maybe not so much today, but on the website you can pay with Bitcoin. You know, so at least that's that.
yeah,
But I think it's the biggest appliance store in Mexico. I mean, the intention is there. Then what's missing is people actually using it, which you know it's still early on, so I'm not worried. I think the people using Bitcoin as medium exchange is gonna be more. It's gonna be something that happens more over the years, over more like 5 to 10 years from now, rather than today. You know, even though there's slow improvements. You know, it's like gradually then suddenly. So like we're gradually getting there, but at some point it's gonna be suddenly. You're gonna be able to pay with Bitcoin everywhere, I believe.
So my last question. So in my series, I'm investigating sort of if Bitcoin is actually working as freedom money. Is it actually like bringing freedom to, well, Latin America is where I go in my series. So what would your answer be? Like in Mexico and in Latin America, is Bitcoin, or let's focus on Mexico. Is Bitcoin bringing freedom to Mexico? Like, what is your
I
take?
mean, I think so. You could say that. So there's more people that have a crypto exchange account than they have a stock investor account. Okay, there's
Yeah.
more people that own crypto that own stocks.
Mm.
Yeah, many of these people own crypto for the wrong reasons, to like day trade and invest in scams. But many, I would say half of them own Bitcoin seriously. You know, so you could say that Bitcoin has brought a new savings and investment class in Mexico. It's already a transformation on the investment side, right? Not for mostly for middle class people. You
Yeah,
know that.
onboarding people to sort of these instruments that can help them keep up with inflation. I guess we could.
Exactly. So I would say that's the biggest case, because Mexico is a very, it's out of the Latin American countries probably the most developed one, right? So
Yeah,
there's like banking adoption like is wider than elsewhere, you know, like things like that. So I would say that it's more on the investment side, other, and also it has brought many jobs like Bitso, which is the biggest exchange, employs like 2,000 people in Mexico and Brazil, or in some other countries. So
hmm.
it brings jobs. You know, it brings investment. It makes people invest in something that beats inflation. It has helped people, you know, access electronic payments. If you don't like, there are some regions that don't have, particularly in the south, that don't have bank accounts and credit cards. So Bitcoin is works as that. You
Yeah,
know, it allows expats like me to live better, more freely. So it has some benefits, but it's still the beginning of the story, right? We cannot call it just a final success story. It's still just the beginning. and I expect this much more to unravel. If you want to talk about countries where it has really transformed the country in Latin America, we're talking about Argentina, Venezuela, and Bolivia. Those are the three countries that have been completely transformed by Bitcoin. Mexico is on the opposite end of that. Argentina is extremely volatile, unstable economy, unstable politics, inflation extremely high. Mexico has barely more inflation than Europe. So the peso is very, very strong. I think it outperforms the euro over the past 6 years.
Oh, really?
So nothing compared to Argentina, which just devalues its currency more and more, right? Now maybe over the past year or so, less so, but over the past 70 years, Argentina has trouble with currency devaluation. Mexico hasn't had any trouble with that, particularly over the past 7 years, basically stable. So not as much urgency here, slowly getting there. But if you want to talk about a very successful story, right now the one that I like the most is Bolivia, because Bolivia a year ago Bitcoin was illegal and you couldn't find it anywhere. Today, there's when you go at the airport of the main airport in the city, the prices are now in USDT, and you can pay with Bitcoin and USDT everywhere across the country. Okay, and so the government, like they're going through high inflation, which is why the government had no choice but to legalize Bitcoin and now and crypto and stablecoins, and now they're making stablecoins and Bitcoin the main preferred way of method of payment and unit of account for stablecoins, right? So that country is completely transformed overnight from a country where nobody had Bitcoin to somewhere where everyone knows what Bitcoin is and everyone uses stablecoins on the daily. So that's a big transformation in just 1 year. So yeah, so I expect Mexico to go a similar way at some point. The government's gonna mess up, and there's gonna be high inflation, and they're gonna put capital controls in the U.S. as well, in Europe as well. And I expect that to be the moment where everything happens suddenly. But we're not there yet.
What about sort of Bitcoin's properties as censorship-resistant money? Is there like a use case for that in Mexico?
I mean, there's always niche use cases, right? Like probably a woman that her man doesn't allow her to have money, so she can use Bitcoin, right?
Yeah,
Bitcoin used as a remittance alternative for people to send money to their families in Mexico from the U.S. and back and forth, right? Bitcoin being used as a way for expats to move to Mexico and pay with anything in Bitcoin, right? Using Swapido. So yeah, there's ways you could do that, but it's not like a country where like there's massive censorship resistance requirements. It's a pretty free country. It has like you can go I can go at a corner store and give him cash and say, can you pay this bank account for me, and they'll pay it instantly, right? You can go on an ATM, click on and send money with deposit without a card, and
right.
then I can enter your bank name and deposit cash to your bank account, not mine because I don't have a card, and without KYC 24/7, right? So Mexico already has very free movement of capital.
Yeah,
There's no capital controls or strong surveillance on everything. Just so I guess where you could say that it wins in censorship resistance, which is not a great use cases, but because there's a lot of criminal organizations in Mexico, they
yeah.
do use Bitcoin
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
they do get away with they mostly use cash, of course, because cash is the best way to launder money and to but there has been some cases where we've studied that, yeah, the cartels are definitely using tens of millions of dollars of Bitcoin.
And they're using actually Bitcoin and not like Monero or
No, they're using actually Bitcoin. I mean, they're using stablecoins, Bitcoin, Monero. They're using everything, but I mean, they're mostly using cash. So this, I don't want to give a weapon to the people that say Bitcoin's for criminals. Bitcoin is a tool that serves anyone, right? The main money for criminals is still cash and the bank accounts.
but the cartels aren't afraid of the whole open ledger aspect of Bitcoin, like that everything is open and traceable.
Well, yeah, that's why the reason why we know this is because they get caught, right?
Ah, yeah, okay, okay, okay.
So
Yeah,
yeah, they do get caught, but there's also a lot of you can, like, the cartels have a infinite people that will give their ID so that they can open a bank account in their name or an exchange account in their name, you know. So everything which we call like a bank account, like a name holder, so it's all under infinite names, you know. So Bitcoin, I mean, Bitcoin is traceable if you KYC an exchange and then you use it from there, right? But if you use someone else's name to buy Bitcoin on a platform and then you send it to, or they can even use coin joins as well, right? There's many tools to obfuscate your transaction history in Bitcoin, used for bad and good, right? At the end, these are just tools that, like a car, like a phone, that can be used for bad activities, but they're mostly used for by normal people that want to live normal lives. Right?
All right, Gustavo. Thank you so much for walking me through Swapido and also Bitcoin in Mexico and Bitcoin as freedom money in Mexico and Latin America.
Of course, anytime. Thank you, Nico, for having me. It was fun.